Sorry, but I don't really think this is necessary. Okay. So please confirm if you can see my screen. Please, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So last week we talked about Python and why Python is a fantastic programming language. We talk about versatility and we talk about every other thing beside that. We talk about the open source, the community around it, and every other thing here. And we talk about we move straight to variables, right? As Mr. Abbas and most of us rightly said, we talk about variables and what really happens when you run your hello world, right? So most time when you see .py, what this shows is this is a Python file. Just like your XLSX represents your Excel. Anytime you see .py, what it means is what this is a Python file. All right. When we talk about a variable, remember a variable in mathematics generally something that has its value to be changed, right? Or something doesn't have a constant value. That is what a variable is. But we said variable in Python. And please, everybody should please mute their mic, please. If you're not talking or speaking, please let mute your mic. Mr. Hassan. Hassan, are you here? Okay, thank you. All right, so we talk about a variable, and I said one thing. About Python variable is anytime you define a variable, you must assign a value to it. For instance, the variable message. Please, can you see this? Can you see my screen here? Is it clear enough, or do I need
No,
to zoom
not
in?
clear.
It's not clear, Abby?
Yes.
All right, so let me try and zoom in. What about now?
Yeah, it's okay. Like,
It's
yeah.
okay like this, Abby.
Yes.
Oh, I can. Should I still zoom in more?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we all okay with this? Adiabatic, do you want to say something, please?
It's okay.
I have no question.
What is it?
No, 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 no. You already done what I asked for.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Please. So we can see this, Abby. So we can see that unlike normal variable, I will just do less talk today, please. Unlike mathematics variable that we use in an equation 2 plus x equals to 5, that we now set for the value of that variable. In Python, anytime you are defining a variable, for instance, message is a variable, right? We must assign a value to it. And when we're talking about value in Python, value can actually be a text, or it can actually be a number. When we're talking about text, most time we refer text to as string. For example, hello Python word is the value of message, and this hello Python word is a text, Abby. So this is represented as string. Please, did anybody get what I'm saying, please? Please, are you getting? Can you hear me? Are you getting what I'm saying at all?
Yes, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So in this case now, message is a variable, right? And in Python, anytime you define a variable, there must be a value to it. So this is a value. So which means when we say new, but I don't want to go too much. I just want to confirm if you're following. So message is a variable, then this is actually a value. And when we're talking about variable and value, Google Lab, new notebook. Because I noticed we don't really talk too much on the variable, unless we actually go after the class to go through the lecture note I shared. For instance, if I say message, So this is a variable. How do we know this is a variable? When we use equals to as an assignment to it. You understand? So when we say message, it makes no sense. This is not a string. This is not a variable. This becomes a variable when we use equals to assign a value to it. A variable is as important as the value that is assigned to it. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. So this is a variable when we assign the value to it. And how do we know? How do we assign a value in Python? We use equals to assign a value to a variable. So for example, if I say hello Python word, sorry. So this is now a variable now. So in this case, the value that is assigned to it is a text, and this is called a string. But if I say let's say name, for instance, name is now Odebo Abiola. Now in this case, now we can see this is also a variable, Abi, and this is the value that is assigned to it. So anytime you are seeing a variable, there are three parts to it. We have the variable, we have the assignment operator. This is the assignment operator, and this is now the value. I think I explained this thing the last time. So in this case now, the value that's assigned to this variable is a text, and this is called a string. And how do we know it is a string? It is a string because of the quote that is put around our text. So anytime you see a quote simply means whatever that is inside that quote means a string. Please, do we get that? So that is what variable and text. But if I say age, for instance, equals to let's say 28. Now, if I say age equals to 28, what does this mean? What it means is age is still a variable, Abi. Please, are we following at all? Because nobody is responding. What's going on?
Yes, age is still a variable.
Okay, thank you. I just want to know if you are following. Okay, I mean, there's a call online. All right, so age is still a variable, Abi. But in this case now, the value is what? The value is 28, right?
Yes.
Good. So this 28 now is not a text, right? This 28 is a number. And in Python, number can actually be divided into two parts. When we say number, most time when we say for now, let's just take it for now. When we say the value of the variable, now for now, when we say the value of the variable, when we say the value, it can actually be a string, Habi, or it can actually be a number. So when it is a string, how do we know something is a string? When a quote is formed around that text or that value. For instance, let's say Habib. If you use Habib in Python, this doesn't mean a string yet, unless you can see a quote around it. Then this means a string now. Or sometimes you can use double quotes for it. I will explain the flexibility of that. All right. You can use single quote or double quote. But if you are using value in our variable, has a variable value, that can also be divided into two parts. For our number can actually be an integer, just like in mathematics, integer. Or sometimes it can also mean a float. So just like in mathematics, when we say an integer is an whole number. It can actually mean a positive or negative number, but it is generally whole number. There is no decimal point. Why float is a number with decimal point. For example, 3 is an integer, minus 34 is an integer. But when we're talking about floats, we are talking about number with decimal points, right? 3.142 is a float number. And it is called a float because, the idea is that the decimal point can actually exist at any other point. For example, 5.2 is also what? A float. So that is actually what differentiates between float and string. Okay. So that is that about that. Because of time, let's just move on with the lecture notes. So that is what it means by this. So when we print the message, we can see hello Python word is printed. All right. So and if you change one thing we have to understand, did I explain this last week that variable is a label, not a container? Please, I just want to get. Did I mention that variable is a label, not a container, please? Anybody in the last class? Hassan.
No, sir.
I mentioned that variable is a container, not a string.
No.
Mustafa, did I mention that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I don't think I need to spend too much time on that. Let's move on then. So we have to understand that variables are labeled, not string, which means immediately you change the value of the variables. So immediately you assign a new variable to that, to a new value to a variable, the variable value itself changes. What I'm saying is this. If I come here and say message equals to, okay, good. So we can see three variables here, right? So if I come here and print name, what I'm supposed to see is Odebo Abiola, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is still loading. All right, so that's give us Odebo Abiola. Oh, this is too much. But what happened if I assign a new variable to this name, and I say my name is now is not Odebo Abiola now. It's not Odebo Abiola again. It's now, let's say, Habib Halimi. If I print this name, from what I explained last week, we didn't supposed to see Odebo Abiola again, right? So what we're supposed to see is the new value that's assigned to the variable, which is Habib Halimi, right? And we're supposed to see Odebo Abiola and Habib Halimi again. So all we need to see here is just Habib Halimi, not Odebo Abiola again. So don't get yourself confused with what is printed first. If I
Please, I don't understand. Come again.
okay, who is that? Odebo Abi.
Yes.
Who else didn't get that? Besides Odebo Ali? Mr. Abbas, please do you get what we're saying?
My understanding of it is that because we already printed Odebo Ale initially, it gave us Odebo Ale. Then when we wrote Habib Halimi and we print again, it brought, and we wrote print, so it now brought the two names. I didn't mean we wrote Odebo Ale Olawale and we didn't print, and then we now wrote name equals to Habib Halimi and we now wrote print under. Then it's only going to bring Habib Halimi. It won't bring the two names. That's my understanding.
All right, back off. All right. Who else? Mr. Hassan. Okay, now this is what I'm saying, please. Let's use. Let me just take it a little bit back. But please, my screen, is it still visible enough here like this?
Yes, yes.
Sure.
If I take it back, bye uncle. Okay, bye.
No.
It's not okay anymore.
Yeah, it's a little bit okay, but I prefer the initial one.
Okay, what about this? Is it okay like this?
Yeah, we are good to go, sir.
All right. So please, if you want to follow with this class and you're not on your system, please go to your Google and search for Google Colab. Go to your browser, then search for Google Colab on your browser. You search your Google Colab on your browser, you see this page. Just come to the second link that opens up in your browser. You can see this Google Colab here that I'm seeing. So just click on this. When you click on this, it takes you to a new page that shows Open Colab and New Notebook. Then click on New Notebook to open your workspace. Please do you get that, or is that too fast? For those that are joining, go to your Google, search for Google Colab. once you search for Google Colab, just check for the second items on your search items. The second item on what opens up. This second item, then click on Google Colab. Then you can open a new notebook, then follow through with what we are doing. All right. So that's exactly about that. So, but what we are saying about a variable is not a label. A variable is not a container. Variables are not container, they are label. Is this? Variables are not container. This. So for instance, let's say name is Adebowale. Adebowale. All right. So please, I just want you to tell me what the output will be now. And I say name equals to Habib. Now, please, if I say print name, so who can tell me what is the output here, please? Anybody? What's the output here? Okay, Abiola, you want to try? Please, if you want to answer, you can answer. Anybody, please.
Habib.
Just Habib.
Yep.
Okay, what if I say print name and print name? What is the output here? Double print. Name is Adebowale, name is Habib, then print name and print name. What is the output here, please?
Habib.
Just one Habib or two Habib?
Two Habib. It will bring Habib. Yes.
Habib 2 times Habib. If someone confused, let's try the first one. Name is Adebowale, name is Habib. So if you try to print name, what do we have? We have Habib, not Adebowale again. All right. So what if I print this again? Print name and print name. What would this be? We have Habib 2 times. Why is Adebowale not showing? Why is Adebowale not showing up again? Anyways, that's the question. All right. What if I say name equals Adebowale? I now print the name. Sorry, please, a few minutes, please. All right, please. Sorry for the disturbance, please. All right. So if I say print name and print name, what do you think will happen here? What will show up? Please, are you with me?
Yes.
I'll wait you. To bring Adebowale and to bring Habib.
All right. Who is that?
Abbas.
Okay, Mr. Abbas. All right. Okay, this will show Adebowale and Habib. All right. So that's beautiful. Okay, what if I say print name print this. Okay, let's say print name. Print. I want Mustafa to answer this. Mustafa, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, good. So the first question I want to ask is, sorry for this. The first question for Mustafa is, how many What's going on here? How many output are we going to have here? Mustafa, how many output are we going to have here?
We have two Odebowale and two Habib.
Two Habib, Abi. Okay, good. Is that correct? I can see that. So that's correct. So this is Odebowale, and Habib, Abi. So this actually speak to the fact that Python is an interpreted language, unlike a compiling or a compiler language. So what Python does is every time you give it an instructions, it takes it to heart and started execution on that particular instruction you gave to it. So this is what we are talking about here. Remember, please can you hear me, right? So what we're talking about here is this. When we assign a variable to the name Odebowale, Python assign this value to the name. So to Python, name means Odebowale and nothing else. To Python, name means Odebowale because that's actually what a variable and value is. What variable is relevance. What is relevance is the value that is assigned to that variable. Do we get it? So which means anytime we see name, it simply means Odebowale. So when we say print name, what it means is print the value of name, and the value of name is Odebowale. That is why when we say print name, Python will now check print name. What is the value of name? We now go back to the line 1 and see what is the value of this name. The value of name is Odebowale. That is why we see Odebowale first. We now come to the next line. What is the next line? Print name. To Python, the name still means Odebowale. That is why you see Odebowale first because of the first print instruction. And that is why you see Odebowale second because of the second print instruction. Do we get it? Now, for the third time, because of time, name is now Habib. So it's what it means is now to Python now, we have changed that instruction from Odebowale to Habib. So to Python now, name is no more Odebowale, name is now Habib. So when we say print name, it's totally forgotten, or it forget about this Odebowale as a name. It now assign the new value of Habib to it. So when we say print name, to Python, it is no more Odebowale, it's now the new value, which is Habib. When we say print name again, it is still Habib. So that is what it means. Python is not a container, it is a label. So which means if a variable is actually if a variable is actually a container, what it means is inside the name we're supposed to find Odebowale, at the same time we're supposed to find Habib. But to Python, once the label change, the name change. It doesn't go back to the previous value. Do you understand? So that is why your name doesn't take Odebowale anymore or any longer, in as much you have assigned a new value to it. So that is that on a high level explanation. So because of time, let's move on. So, and we speak about naming a variable, right? Last week, what are the rules when we are naming a variable? Did we speak about that? The rules for naming a variable, please, did we? I don't know if anybody is still with me. When we are naming a variable last week, I explained to us that a variable can only contain number, alphabet, and underscore, right? What's going on? Is anybody here?
Sure, we are here. We are with you.
Please, did you speak about naming rules for naming a variable last week?
We spoke a little about it.
A little, Abi?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So last week, I think we mentioned, since we know what a variable is and how we can assign a variable to it, and then we now talk about what are the rules for naming a variable so that we won't have an issue when we're naming our variable. One of the first rules is in Python, a variable can only contain letter. For the first rule, a variable can only contain letter, alphabet. I think it's here. Let me just show it us from here. Variable can only contain letters, numbers, and underscore. We want to name a variable. So when we're talking about variable in Python, the only thing we can see here For instance, here we can see our variable is name, right? So this only contains all letters, but sometimes they can actually contain alphabet as well, and figures as well. For example, we can say this is number 1, right? Name 1. When we have more than one name, for example, we can say this is name 1, and we can say this is name 2. So in this case, we can see name 1 and name 2 are different variables. So it doesn't mean this will change any longer. So if I say print name 1 and print name 2, so in this case, Python will print, let me comment this out. Let me comment this out. So when we print name 1 and name 2, we can see Odebowale and Habib because these are two different variables. So our variable can contain alphabet and numbers and alphabet and number. So that is what it means. So a variable name can contain alphabet, number, and underscore. Our variable can start with alphabet and underscore, but it cannot start with a number. For example, this can actually be name 1. It is wrong to say this is one name. Let's see if this works. Let's see. You can even see the underline already. So when we say one name, and let's try and print it out, we can see we have an error, right? Because it shows what invalid decimal literacy. So what it means is, in as much as our variable can contain alphabet, number, and underscore, it must not start with a number. So we cannot say one name, two name, that is wrong. But we can say name 1 and we can say name 2 as our variable name. That is very correct. All right. Another thing is sometimes we might actually need a spacing in our variables. So we use underscore as a spacing because there must not be a spacing when we are naming a variable. So for example, if I want to say, let's say instead of name 1, I want to say first name. So I can say first. I cannot say first spacing name. This is very wrong because a variable must not contain space. So instead of space, when you are naming a variable, we use underscore instead. So we can say underscore. So we can say first name, right? So this is straightforward, right? So instead of saying first underscore space name, so we replace that space with underscore. So in this case now, I can now say print first name. So this is also very straightforward and correct, right? So we can see that Odebowale. All right. So that is the first one. Remember, the first rule is your variable name should only contain number, alphabet, and underscore. It must not start with a number, but it can start with alphabet and can as well start with underscore. Another thing is your variable name should not contain spacing. Instead of that space, replace the space with an underscore. Another thing is your variable. Let's see this. Okay, avoid keyword when you are naming a variable and functions. Now, there are some keywords in Python that we use. For example, print is a keyword, right? These are functions that are actually recognized in Python. So keyword or your functions that are recognized in Python, for example, your print, you shouldn't use print as a variable. For example, I can now say, let me say print as a variable name. This is so wrong. So I can now say print. And naming a variable. Print. So you can see type error. String is not callable because of the print we use. So avoid using keywords when you're naming a variable. Okay. So let's go back to the first name. So avoid using keyword when you're naming a variable. Are we following?
Yes, sir.
Good. So, okay, another thing is variable should be short but descriptive. I've shared this thing on the group. You can always go back to it and go through it. Variable name should be short but descriptive. For example, name is better than name. For example, instead of saying name equals Odebowale, I now say n equals Odebowale. N is not descriptive enough. Even though it's shorter than name, but it's not descriptive enough. In as much your variable name should be short. At the same time, it should also have a meaning to whoever wants to read your code. So you don't say name and abbreviate it to as N equals to Odebowale or N equals to Habib. That doesn't really make sense. Student name, instead of you saying student name and you now short it to SN. So some people SN means serial number. So they might not really get what you're saying. Or you saying name length is better than now saying length of person name. This is too long. So you could have just said name length and person will actually get what you're trying to say. So it should be short and descriptive, and it shouldn't be very long at the same time. So that's actually what it means. At the same time, for now, for the sake of this code, your variable name should be lowercase. For instance, it's not okay for you to come here and say first name. This will not give you an error actually, so you shouldn't mistaking this with the other rules of variable we have been saying. What we are saying here is using capital letters a variable means different thing in Python. When you're using capital letters as a variable name, it simply means different thing entirely in Python. When you use it, it's not as if you have an error or anything in your code. You won't have an error in your code, but for now, stick to using your variable name as lowercase letter. All right, let me try and clear out all my restart my runtime so that I can remove all the internal error that were present in my code initially. Okay, so that's that about that. Let's move on. So one thing that we should avoid, in Python, we deal with a lot of error. In fact, generally, programmers deal with error every now and then. And it doesn't matter what level of programming you have, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or you're an expert, or even advanced. Even experienced developer, experienced programmer deal with error every now and then, because error is just normal way of life as a programmer. That is just one thing about it. So it's not as if when you now see error in your code, error doesn't actually make you a bad programmer anyways. Just that maybe you're not really using the right syntax or you are missing some of these things. Sometimes it might just be a simple syntax, or maybe you just open a code, you forget to close it, or you didn't use the column somewhere, or you misspelled. So you can actually have that every now and then. Don't be too harsh on yourself when you're dealing with error in Python. All right, so let's say first name. Let's try and print this. See if you have. Okay, good. So what we are saying is avoid name error when we are dealing with Python. What do you mean by name error? For instance, if I say message equals to hello, okay, let me use this for him. So let's say hello Python word, and I say print message. Who can tell me what's the output here, please? When we try and print this, what's the output?
Hello Python word.
Hello Python word, Abby. Anybody else?
There will be error because that message is not spelled correctly.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. So which means the first person that said hello Python word, automatically you have an error. That is just it, because you actually didn't notice that. And it's normal thing when you don't notice it, but you just have to check your code every now and then to see what this kind of error is. But when we try and print this, let's see the kind of error we have. We can see name error. Name error in this sense, most time you're working with variables, you usually deal with name error, because what it means is I did not recognize what you're asking me to do. Name error. I don't know where this name is coming from. And that is one thing about Python. So what it means is you have assigned a variable to message. Message is what Python has in its mind of a variable, hello Python word. But when you now say print message, if you try to see what you call and what you define, is you can see one has double S and one has a single S. So to Python, what Python recognizes is message like this, not message like this. So if we had additional S to it and we try and print this, all right, you can now see it gives us the right syntax and it gives us the right output, hello Python word. But what happens if we try and see, because we know in English, normal message is supposed to be a single S, a double S rather. What if you use single S here and we use double S here? Are we still going to have the same output, or are we going to have an error?
We are going to have an error
We're going to have an error. Are you sure?
Yes.
Let's.
because Python is a label, not a
Ah,
content.
but what happened? I'm having the right output here. What's going
How
on?
about now?
What's going on here? Don't mind this thing. He's the one doing nonsense. It's kind of very funny sometimes. Right, don't worry. Let's go and interrupt the runtime and see. Which is why, to be very honest, which is why I most time prefer Jupyter Notebook to Google Colab. If I want to work on complex projects that I need more advanced tools to work on this, or resources to work on this, I usually use Google Colab for it. For example, I want to build a machine learning project or these things, I use Google Colab. But just for teaching, learning on these things, I prefer using Jupyter Notebook because that is very straightforward. And most time you usually have less internal error, unlike this. All right. So let's see if this will give us the error we want. Because actually here, and this is what's supposed to show. So we have name error here, right? So in this case, we can see that our variable is a single S. So when we're trying to print a message, it doesn't recognize it because what you define to Python is message with a single S. And one thing about Python is Python does not spell check. It doesn't tell you that, oh, guy, you are making a grammatical error here. There's nothing concerned Python with grammatical error. In as much you're consistent with your definitions and with your what you're printing, Python will still give you the output you're supposed to have. Whether you spell boy as BYO or you spell it as OYB, it doesn't matter to Python. In as much you're consistent with your definition of the variable and what you're printing, Python will give you exactly what you want. So this is exactly what happened here. When you say your message is hello Python word and you're trying to print message as double S, it will give you an error. But when you change that to single S, you're supposed to have normal stuff here. Do you get it, please? So that is that about that. Let's move on to see the next thing about it. So that is what we mean by name error. So one of the error you see most time is name error, and usually name error comes from you when you're defining a variable. Please, do we get that? So that's that about that. I just want to rush through this so that we can start what we're supposed to cover today. So variables are labeled, not container. I think I've done this right enough, Abby. So these are some of the assignments I gave you last week. Some did. I think Mr. Abbas submitted an assignment. Most of us submitted an assignment. I don't see anything from Hassan, right? I don't see anything from Hassan last week. Who else is on this meeting?
I'm here.
Adiabati. We not see you last week as well, anyways. So Adiabatic, nothing from Adiabatic. And I think for now, these are the people we have on the call. We have some background people that will just come and be discovering that they do not understand what we are teaching, and they will not actually. Mustafa, do you have a question, please?
No.
Okay, so I can see you're waving your hand. All right, so let's just move on. So, okay, let's go through this simple assignment. So what this simple assignment does is, did anybody want to explain this to us by sharing the screen?
Sorry, before you move forward, I have a question.
Please ask your question.
Yeah. You said you should download something on Google that we are not with the system. I don't get the thing right. What do you call of that?
Please, you're not downloading anything. If you want to use the working environment, just like the one I've been using to run this Python code, do you understand?
Yes.
Just like the one we've been using to run the cell and all those things, to use it, you go to your Google, Google browser. You now you search for Google Colab. You can type it in either your Google search or you can type it in your URL space. Type Google Colab. You see that? Can you see my screen?
Yes. Okay.
But it's not very clear enough, Abby.
I can see it.
Google Colab. So if you click on that, it will take you to your Google page, your search page, right? Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, the first thing you can see is welcome to collaboration. That's not what you need. The second item you can see that is Google Colab, right? Oops. Assistant is not working.
Open collab or new note.
What is it?
Like click on open collab or new notebook.
New notebook. Click on new notebook. So that's it.
Mm.
So it will take you directly to the space where we're working on working environment. So
Okay.
because of time, let's move ahead. Okay, so see this simple question that says assign a message to a variable, then print that message. I think this is very simple, so that we won't waste our time on this. Assign a message to a variable and print that message, then change the value of the variable to a new message and print the new message. I think this is clear enough as well, right? Okay, so the next thing we talk about, I don't think we entered string at all last week, did we? Mr. Abbas, please, did you enter string?
Briefly,
Okay,
briefly.
briefly.
Yeah.
Okay, briefly. Okay. All right. So let's talk about string, and let's move on after the string. I think I've also explained a little bit about string today. From this, I explained that when we say a value, remember when we have a variable, we need an assignment and we need a value to assign to this. And when we're assigning value to a variable, can actually assign. As we move on, I will tell you more data type you can assign to a variable. For now, please, for now, just let us get it that we can actually assign a string, or we can actually assign number to it. When we say number, we're talking about integers or floats. When we're talking about strings, generally, string is anything that has quotes inside it. I don't want to say text now because it's not restricted to text. Any number or any value that has quotes around it is regarded as string in Python. Whether it is a number or it is a text, it is regarded as string. For instance, if I write 3, 3 is a value, right? It is an integer. But if I put quotes around it, this 3 automatically means string. For instance, if I say string hello, so this is also what a string. Now, when we say a string can actually be noted with a single quote, or sometimes it is a double quote with a double quote. So if I added a new quote to this and added a new quote to this is also what a string. So whether it's a single quote or double quote, it simply means a string. So a string is generally anything that is inside a quote, whether it's a single quote or double quote, it means a string. Please, are we following? Now, and when we now say, let me see another thing that we're supposed to take note under this. Okay. All right. So why do we need single quote or double quotes? We need single quote or double quote for string for flexibility. And the major reason for that is that in some of the case, for instance, okay, now please let me use the environment for that. So when we say message equals to this, this is a string. Now this is a string because it is a single quote, Abby. If I say message again, this is also a string. Right, so this is also a string. So whether it is a single quote or double quote, it simply means a string. But why do we need the single quote or double quote? The major reason why we need single quote or double quote is for flexibility. And the major reason for that is that most time, because our text sometimes, in fact, most of the time, our text can also include single quote inside it or double quote inside it. So for that flexibility, so I won't have an error, that is why we need that single quote or double quote. Let me give an example. If I print message here, right? Please, are you with me now? I think I lost the connection not quite long. Are you there with me, please?
Sure.
Okay, good. I lost that very brief person connection just now. All right. So if I say print message, and let me just comment this out. Hash is used for comment, and what it means is you ignore everything in front of that hash. I will explain this more. So it simply means the first line is ignored. So to Python, I'm starting my code from here. So in this case, if I say print message, check. So if I say, if I say print message, right? So this gives us what we need, right? Let me comment the second line and print the first line. So what it means is to Python, this is not existing in our code. This is just what is existing. So let's save it to give us what we need as well. So this also gives us, this is a string as well. Do you get it? So whether it is a single quote or double quote, to Python, it is a string. But how do we know this is actually a string? To know what data type we're working with, we can use the type function. If I say type message, what type of variable is our message? If I click on this and try to print it out using the type function, I will explain more about that later. We can see this shows this is a string. str is the abbreviation for string in Python. All right. So the question, why do we need single quotes and double quotes in Python? For instance, let's say I want my print to look exactly like this. This is Abiola's bag. This is exactly what I want to print. I want to print something like this. This is Abiola's bag. Do you understand? So how do you go about this? Can someone help us with this? I want to get this is Abiola's bag. Who can tell me exactly what to print? Can someone just print on his own side? We are using a system and share your screen. Who can help us with that? Who is on the system first? Who is on system? Mustafa, are you on system?
No.
Oh, you're not on system. Mr. Abbas, are you on system?
Yes, I'm on the system.
All right, please, can you try and print this code? This is Abiola's bag. I want to see using just say message. This is Abiola's bag, but I want it to form something like this. So I have this.
Am I not going to assign a variable to that bag?
Please assign a variable to it. Yes, use message. Use message as a variable.
Okay.
Please be fast about it. Okay. Thank you. Please come my attention when you're done so I can share your screen.
Okay. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
All right. So please share your screen. I will stop sharing now. So please share yours. Let's see what we have.
Um,
Mr. Abbas, you can share your screen, please.
I'm looking for where to click share screen. I'm looking for where to click share screen.
If you go to the lower part of your screen, you see something like microphone, you see something like a camera as well. I don't know if you see that.
On the right or on the left?
No, the down part. The down part.
The down part.
Mute.
Okay, yeah.
Can you see that?
Where we mute and unmute.
Exactly. Where we mute and unmute. You
Yes.
can also see the CC part. You can see one smiling face like that. Or you click on that camera. Sorry, the present now, please.
Turn on captions, have you?
What is it?
Turn on caption. Okay, present now. Okay, I've seen it.
Present now, please. Present
I've
now.
clicked
Click
on
on
it.
present.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, present now. Enter screen. Share. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see my screen? Hello?
Sorry,
Can you
press
see me,
Control Plus. Control
Can-
Plus. Zoom
Control
in.
plus, have you?
Yes, to zoom in.
Okay.
Oh, are you not on Windows? Do you get the Control Plus? Or it's not working? Do you get the Control Plus? Or it's not working? But I can actually see what you print. Did anybody see Mr. Abbas' screen? Abiola Adiabati, can you see it?
I can't
Yes.
see any.
I'm seeing.
Because you're on phone. Mustafa, can you see the screen?
Okay, I
Yes.
can now.
You can see it, Avi.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, but Mr. Abbas, I think it will just be okay if you can just do Control Plus. Or can't you see Control Plus on that? Or is it not working? But I think you can actually see what is showing. If you can see my cursor. I don't think so. So this is Abiola's bag. Then print message. I think this is exactly what it is. So let's just move on. All right. Thank you, Mr. Abbas. Thank you, Mr. Abbas. That is very beautiful. That is exactly what we need. So you can stop sharing now. So what we need here to print this is Abiola's bag is, let's say we have message as the variable name. And we now say, remember, when we're talking about a string, we can actually use a single quote or a double quote. So for instance, where you want to use a single quote for this, I will say single quote is, this is Abiola's bag. And use a closing quote. Because when you're talking about string, there must be an opening string, an opening quote and a closing quote, right? So please, who is that? Hassan, please mute yourself, please. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So if I try to print this, there's no doubt there'll be an error here. Because yes, there is an error of syntax error. And why do we have this error? There is a conflicting quote here. Remember, when we say for a string, everything must be inside the quote, right? Opening quotes and closing quotes, and everything in between is a string. Or opening double quote and closing double quotes, and everything in between them there is also what? Is also a string. But in this case now, in the text itself, there is a single quote here, right, which shows possession. But the problem here is when we now have a single quote and a closing quote to Python, remember, Python doesn't spell check. It doesn't know whether what you're saying is grammatically correct or not. Or what it wants is consistency. So when we say a single opening quote, and we now say Abiola's bag, we now introduce another single quote here. To Python, from here to here is the string that you need. And you can see from the syntax highlighting, this is Abiola, that is where the syntax highlighting stop. So to Python, every other thing that comes, it doesn't recognize it. And that is why you have that syntax error. And for the flexibility of Python ways of using quotes in a string, that is why instead of using a single quote here, since double quote can still work, why don't you just use a double quote and save yourself from these issues or problem or error? So instead of using a single quote or a single opening quote, why don't you just use double opening quote and use double opening quote? So to Python, where does your string begin? It begins where it see that quote. And the next thing it look out for is a closing quote. So to Python, this is where the string begins. It doesn't stop here because this is not the type of quote it started with. So to Python, this will not be the closing quote. It doesn't work like that. So it stopped here because this is where it see the next double quote. Please, I hope you're getting this. So when we now say print message, we now have this is Abiola's bag. So we can see from our output, and this is exactly what Mr. Abbas does. Barakalofi, thank you for that. All right, so let's move on. So that is that regarding using single and double quotes. So if you move down, okay, now there are some methods we now use. Now we are getting closer to actually where we are moving. We are moving to now. When we say method, what are the techniques to work on a variables or to work on values in Python? Remember, when we say values are actually what is assigned to a variable, please don't let us mistake that. Mr. Abbas, you want to say something, please? Before we move on. Please, Mr. Abbas, you can continue. You want to say something? Can anybody hear me? Adebasi, can you hear me? Ahsan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mustafa, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Mr. Abbas, are you there? Okay, please let us move. Let us move on. Mr. Abbas will join us. All right. So we're not talking about variable value. Okay. There are three techniques that works or that act on values. So three techniques that are actually applied on values. So three techniques that act on value. I think you have seen some of it. Mr. Abbas, is that you? So three techniques that act on value. We have number one, to be a function. We have actually seen some of this function, the input function and all of these things. Function. The next thing is what is called method, which we are going to see now. Methods. And the last is operators, which you're going to see later. Oh, sir, it is 1:30. I think we should have a short break, then come back. Yeah, please. What do you think? Please let's have a short break because some people need to go and pray, and some of us need to go and pray. So
Yes,
please,
yes.
let's have a short break. Let's come back by 2, please. Let's come back to 2, please. Thank you, everyone, please.
All right.
Thank you.